may be seated, friends. You know, wouldn't it be great if life had a reset button on it? It doesn't, right? But it would be a nice concept. I know in my family, one of the things that I do, my extended family, is I'm like our IT guy, right? Not that I'm a real IT guy, but I'm a little bit of a computer nerd, which means I know more than most of my family who knows virtually nothing about computers, right? So that means that I'm the one who's delegated whenever there's a problem with somebody's computer, I get to fix it, right? Any of you play that role in your family? Yeah, a few of you. And so you know what that's like, right? Because it's gotten better over the years because computers have gotten better, they don't crash as often. And also because I finally succeeded in teaching most of my relatives this concept of resetting or rebooting the computer, right? Like if something doesn't work, before you call me, restart it, reset it, because so many times that'll fix it. And you know, it took a while to get that across. Like with my dad, that took like many years, no joke, because he would call me up and we had this same scenario would repeat time and time again. Middle of the day, I'd get a call. There's my dad on my ID. So I'd answer the phone thinking it might be something important or whatever. And he would say, I need your help. I've got a big problem. Well, what's the big problem? He said, my computer, it's not working. I'm trying to get some stuff done here, and it's not working. Can you help me? So, well, what's the matter? Well, when I click, it won't work. So, well, have you reset it? Well, no, I haven't. You can't reset a mouse. I said, Dad, I don't mean reset the mouse. I mean reset your computer. Have you done that yet? He said, well, no, because I might lose what I'm working on. I said, well, what are you working on? What's so urgent you lose it? And he goes, well, I'm in my best game of hearts ever, and if I reset it, we're going to have to let that game go now, aren't we, Dad? Because if you want the computer to work, you got to hit the reset button. And you know, it would be great if life had a reset button, but it just doesn't. At this time of year, we're thinking kind of big picture. We're thinking, what if, as we go into the new year, we could kind of reset a little bit? We could do things differently. That the old is past and the new has come, and let's make 2015 better than 2014. We're going to be looking in this message series at some ways that, since we can't reset our whole life, how are some ways that we can look in different areas of our life and kind of regain focus on what God would have us to be focusing on. It's a time of year where we oftentimes like to make resolutions. And we say, you know, in this year I'm going to be different because I'm going to do this or I'm going to not do that. And that's a good thing, I think. There's some validity to that. Perhaps your resolutions will look a little bit like our friend Bob's here. Here's Bob's resolutions. Go back a couple years, 2013, said, first, I'm going to lose weight. Second, get fit. Third, give up alcohol. Fourth, stand up to my boss. Fifth, be nicer to my wife. Sixth, sort out the junk in the shed, which is kind of funny, like be nice to wife in the shed. Like, I don't know how the priority orders all this stuff, but regardless, this is the top 6 things that Bob would like to see done differently in 2013. Maybe your resolutions look a little like this. In fact, maybe these are verbatim, some of yours, in fact. So that's 2013. Now let's see how Bob changed for 2014. About the same, don't they? You ever had that happen before? They look about the same. So now this year we want to lose more weight, right? Apparently the 2 pounds we lost last year weren't quite enough. Still want to get fit. That hasn't happened. Third, give up alcohol and cigarettes. Have you ever done that? Where you try something, you say, I want to give up this, and it doesn't work. You say, what? What if I made it harder for myself? Then maybe I would succeed, right? So we like double it and try again. Fourth, stand up to boss. That just didn't happen. Fifth, try to be nicer to my wife. I'm not going to be measured on results, right? Just on effort. If I can get an A for effort here, that should be worth something, right? And 6, sort out the junk in the shed still. Okay, that's 2014. So now coming into 2015, what's Bob looking at? A little different. Lose more weight again, right? So you ever had that? You know, you lose some and then it comes back. You lose it again. Kind of how that works. Get fit next year. I like that. It's January, and we're already delegating to 2016, right? We're saying, you know what, that didn't happen in this year. Number 3, we apparently we crossed off give up alcohol and cigarettes. We're just going to go for drink less. Okay, what if we could just reduce it by a couple beers this year? That would at least be forward progress, right? Number 4, apparently we did stand up to boss because now it's find a new job. Sometimes those go hand in hand. And then number 5, try to be nicer to my ex-wife. That tells you how successful we were at the be nicer to the wife thing. And finally, sort out the junk, not in the shed, but in my life. So this is Bob's progression of resolutions. And sometimes that's how it goes for us. That year over year over year, we set out, we try to do these things, and they're good things, they're noble things, but we keep having the same problems. And we keep getting hung up over the same things. And if your resolutions this year look a lot like your resolutions last year, don't give up hope, because, God's grace is still reaching out to us. But sometimes we need to kind of reset our focus, to reset around what is that central priority in our lives. Because the thing is that the new year, it gives us a chance to kind of look at our spiritual lives as well, and to look at a bit of resetting there. Say, what if things could be different in our relationship with God? What if we could be closer to God? We want that. We want to be closer to God, to have a better spiritual life, to pray more, to sin less, to do things that honor God. But we oftentimes get stuck in this, and we kind of get stuck in the same challenges. Why is that? Well, I think that sometimes it is because we fill our lives with so many good things that we miss out on the truly great things. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to do that. It's easy to do that. Remember my freshman year of college, I faced this kind of dilemma that there were so many new opportunities and so many great things, good things to be doing, that it was hard. I wasn't really responsible enough to make the choices as to what good things I needed to do and what good things I needed to just not do, because they just weren't going to be possible. So I tried just to do everything. So of course there's, your academics and your studying, doing that. Beyond that, I was volunteering with Youth for Christ at a local school. It was really, really fun. Got to be an intern on our student activities committee, which planned like these campus-wide activities. Later learned that being an intern just was a thing for freshmen, where they just didn't pay you to do the same amount of work. But I was a freshman, kind of gullible with that stuff. I got to be the captain of our really bad soccer team, but it was still fun, right? That was a good thing to do. Jennifer and I, we were dating a long-distance relationship, all these other good things in my life. And the thing was, I found that I was not doing really well at any of them, because I was trying to do so many. And so then there was an opportunity that came up where I made this decision that would really help me through some challenge to change the way that I was thinking about things. My friend Nick was a guy in a dorm, and Nick was a business major, and he was like the local expert on investing. And Nick had started a eTrade.com account, which was a new concept there at the late 90s. And he was buying these tech stocks, and he was like always talking about all this money he was making and stuff. I thought, if I was doing what Nick was doing there, I wouldn't have to do my little computer lab job and these various little jobs I had around campus, because that seems like a pretty easy way to do this. So I had like $2,000 saved up from my summer construction job, and so I took all that, of course, and decided that I was going to, become the next great investor. And so I made this investment where I took my $2,000 and I invested it, and I quickly turned that $2,000 into $432. Come to find out, just watching a little bit of an investing channel while working out and then buying all that same stock, not a good idea, believe it or not. And that's what I had done, because I was trying to do everything, and I wasn't putting enough focus into anything or doing anything right. And I realized that my little investment disaster was really the direction that my whole life was heading. It wasn't just a matter, and it was really hard to accept. It wasn't just a matter of losing money. That was hard. But much bigger than that was realizing that by losing focus on what God was really calling me to do, that I wasn't going to be successful at anything. And it's so easy to want to live a good and meaningful life and to fill it with so many things that we're unable to really be successful at the core things that God is calling us to do. We serve, we worship, we do our jobs, we have our families, we all these wonderful things, and we get filled 24/7, so there's just no margin in life, and we miss out on those great things God is calling us to do. What if instead of making a huge amount of resolutions this year, what if you and I did something differently? What if we made one single resolution, and that was simply to live more fully into God's purpose for our life? If at the top of the list, everything I want to accomplish this year, whatever those things may be, if at the top of the list it was that I want to live more fully into God's purpose for my life. And then all the other steps, those were simply ways of doing just that thing. Reminds me of a verse in the Bible, Jeremiah 29:11, which says this, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Now, this is a great verse. It's a verse that many Christians memorize. We know it very well. And sometimes we can kind of take it out of context and we can misunderstand it, because it's easy when we read it just to say, oh, well, God clearly, for me as an individual, God clearly has great plans and good intentions, so the future is going to be great. So 2015, it's going to be a great year because God has great plans for me, and I have hope and I have future, so I can just plan on everything being awesome. And the problem is then, like, that year happens, and if this year was anything like last year or years before, you know that sometimes life is really tough. And sometimes it doesn't seem like everything is heading this wonderful, perfect direction that it seems like it should. And say, well, wait a minute, God, what happened here? Because didn't you make this promise to me that this is how it's going to be? And if we want to understand Jeremiah 29:11, we got to understand the story that was happening around it. That's called the context, because anytime you read a Bible verse, you've got to read it in context. In fact, somebody was saying to me last night after church, I had never heard this, I thought it was cool. They said, if you take the text out of context, all you're left with is a con. Kind of good, that's a good way of putting it, right? Yeah, I went all these years to seminary, and what did I get, right? They didn't even teach me that, right? But it's so true. If you just take words out of context, you can kind of make them say anything you want. Jeremiah 29:11 is written. It's a prophecy that is written by Jeremiah, and it's written to these Israelites that are in a really tough position. You see, they had been living in Israel, and their enemies had come because they had sinned. The Babylonians came, and they conquered Israel, and they took away many of them. The Babylonians had an interesting tactic. They would take many of the best and the brightest, and they would ship them off to foreign countries. And they would integrate them into the societies of those foreign countries, so that the nation they came from would lose its national identity and would be less likely to revolt or to rise up against the Babylonians. This was part of how they made their empire so strong, by conquering others and kind of assimilating them into Babylon. So some of the Jews had been taken away, and they were resisting this, of course. They were planning for God to come and rescue them. They were waiting for this great rescue mission from God to come. And they were awaiting and awaiting and waiting. Well, Jeremiah was back in Jerusalem. He was not taken. He was a prophet back there, and he was left in Jerusalem. And he writes this prophecy, and he writes it to all these people who are exiled, these ones who are in Babylon. And they were looking for this kind of a message, right? That, hey, it's going to be all good. But we have to read the things that it says beforehand, starting in verse 4. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those who I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses, settle down, plant gardens, and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and daughters, or your sons, and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase your number there, do not decrease. Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. That's not what we were looking for, Jeremiah. There were other prophets around, in fact, at that time, the false prophets, who were saying just the opposite. They were saying, hey, don't worry, God's coming soon, the rescue party's coming, and we're going to get out of this Babylon place, and we're going back to Jerusalem, and back to life as normal. You can move into your old house and go back to your old job, and life's going to be good. So just hang on just a little bit longer. Jeremiah says, it's not going to be that way. It's not going to be that way. Instead, what's going to happen is basically the Babylonians' plan. That's really what's going to happen to you guys. You are going to, at least for a time, be in this society, and your job is to live there. In fact, go ahead and, if you're young, go ahead and get married, have kids. They're going to have kids. Your grandkids, they're going to be here in exile as well. That's going to be your life. That's going to be what you should expect. And not only should you have kids and grandkids and all this stuff, but you really should work to see that this place prospers, because this is your new home for the rest of your life. You may not love it, but it's yours. So build, get some real estate, have kids, have grandkids, enjoy life here, because this is your new reality. Then he continues on, verse 10. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my gracious promise to bring you back to this place, that's Jerusalem. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call to me and come to me and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back from captivity. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I have banished you, declares the Lord, and bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile. Now, this word you, we understand in a different way, because we realize when he says that talking about the plans that I have for you, he's not talking about a specific person or individual. He's talking about all you all, right? This is everybody. This is like Israel and Israel in the future. So when he says you, we're really talking about your grandkids. Because we're saying when 70 years have come and gone, and people didn't usually live that long in those days. So most of the people reading this, they weren't going to get to see this come into fruition. They weren't going to get to see this great thing of Israel all being brought back to Jerusalem. When this happened, most of them would be in graves in Babylon. Well, that's kind of a bummer, isn't it? If you're an Israelite, that's not really the whole message that you wanted, but the truth is that God's plans were bigger than those immediate circumstances. God's plans for God's people were bigger than just what was happening in that moment in that generation. Yeah, God has plans, big plans, but they don't always mean that you and I get everything that we want in the moments in which we want it. We sometimes get a little confused, and we see God almost like this great cosmic vending machine, right? Where if I put the money in and I push the button, I get the Coke, right? That's just how it works, right? But it's not always how it works with God. You say, well, I go to church and I pray and I give and I serve, and so I want this one thing, God. Why is that so hard? And sometimes we pray and we get exactly what we want. Praise God. It happens. It's happened to me. It's probably happened to you. Other times, life's a little different. And other times, we have to look at God's bigger plans. And when we look at this verse, Jeremiah 29:11, it is filled with hope, because it reminds us that God is about something bigger. God's plans are much bigger than just my immediate circumstances. They're bigger than just my look at 2015 and what I want it to be in my life and what you want it to be in your life. They're much greater than that, because God has this kingdom view, this eternal view. We're a people who we talk about our belief in the resurrection and eternal life, but oftentimes we live like we don't really believe that. Because oftentimes we live as if the only thing that matters is the next day or week or month or year, or maybe just the rest of my life. But the truth is that just my life here on earth is only the beginning. It's only the beginning in God's eternal economy. And so that changes my focus when I understand that my life, your life, our lives are about something so much bigger than just ourselves, than just this immediate circumstance. Rick Warren wrote a great book called The Purpose-Driven Life, and he started it off with these words: "It's not about you. The purpose of your life is far greater than your own personal fulfillment, your peace of mind, or even your happiness. It's far greater than your family or your career or even your wildest dreams and ambitions. If you want to know why you were placed on this planet, you must begin with God. You were born by His purpose and for His purpose. And we get it backwards sometimes, right? Because truth is, I was made for God's purposes. But sometimes I behave like God should have been made for my purposes. Because here's my agenda. God, why aren't you getting on board with this? And the truth is that it's my job to get on board with God's agenda, with God's big picture for my life and for all of creation, really. That means that every circumstance might not work out as I want it to, but that's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Could it be that God's will is much bigger and more profound and majestic than I could ever assume? Maybe Jeremiah is talking about the church as a whole here and the plans that God has for us in God's kingdom. Rick Warren also says this. He says, being successful and fulfilling your life's purpose are not at all the same issue. You could reach all your personal goals, become a raving success by the world's standards, and still miss the purpose for which God created you. Wouldn't that be tragic? If you checked off every resolution this year, and next year you started the year with a clean sheet of resolutions that were so much different than this year, but in doing so, you missed the central purpose. If you chased after all these things that might be good things, but you missed that great thing of saying, God, what is it you want from me this year? What is your purpose in having me here this year? And make everything else fall underneath that. Jesus said it this way in Matthew 6:33. He'd been talking about the things that we worry about and the day-to-day needs that we have and storing up stuff here on earth. And he said this, seek first His kingdom, it's God's kingdom, and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. That's a pretty good approach to start off a new year with, I think. Seek God's kingdom first. Seek God's plans first. Begins in God's Word, right? I want to read that, because if I'm not reading that, it's kind of hard to understand what God's purpose would be. It's about how does my life help build God's kingdom? How can God use my life to make an impact on those around me that'll be so much bigger than just the little things that I'm concerned about? Of all the ways that we could order our lives, why is it best to trust in the Lord first, to put His purposes first? Why would Jesus say, seek first His kingdom? Well, when we live our lives by looking through this kingdom lens, it frees us to make better value decisions about other things in life. It frees us to make better value decisions about the rest of these good things so that we can focus on the truly great things that God offers to us. So this week, I challenge you to look at 2015 and to write out a simple statement of purpose, to write your 2015 purpose statement this week. This could be a couple lines or a paragraph where you say, here for me, this is why I think God has put me on this earth here in 2015. And this is what I want to center my life around. Now, I don't know how we do brownie points here because we don't really have a scoring system. But if you want brownie points, you could even email that to me. And if you do, I promise I'll read it and I'll pray over it with you. I'd love to join you in prayer over what God's calling you. I promise I won't critique it either, because this is kind of a you and God thing, right? I'm pretty sure that you and God can sort all this out. But take some time to do that. This is not something you would just do here in like 2 seconds, or something you do while your spouse drives home, or even worse, while you drive home. Don't do that. Instead, take a little bit of time this week. It's a balmy January day, right? Go for a walk, or take some time by the fire later this week when it gets cold, or whatever it takes to sit and think about this and say, God, why'd you put me here this year? What's the purpose that you have me here? Would you pray with me? God, thank you for using us, for calling us to be your daughters and your sons. I pray that as we enter this new year together, that we would have a clarity of focus around the purposes that you are calling us to, the reasons that you put us here. Because, God, I know that you want to use us in such big and powerful ways. And, God, I pray that you would help us to understand that more and more. Lord, we thank you so much for sending your Son, Jesus, who loved us so much that he would give his life for us. God, we love you and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.